Hello everyone, Santi here with more Let's Make a Game Astral Collision. Not a whole lot to talk about in the editor today, but I want to start by addressing the bug that I had last week with the journal. As you may recall, it wouldn't open. The bug turned out to be this. 4 characters right here. Let me do this so you can see it a little bit more easily. Ugh, looks massive to me, but I know it makes it easier to see on YouTube. So this is the section of code that parses the character categories information, where I've got all the stuff for the characters put into place. And I had, for whatever reason, just left off the indexer into the character categories array. Why, I couldn't tell you, but just one of those things that was an oversight. So once I actually hunted it down, it was pretty quick to discover it and pretty quick to fix as well, because it was just like, wait, this is supposed to be indexing into an array. I'm not doing that. That's why it's breaking. So I got that fixed. I've done a few other things, if I go back in here, that I'm going to talk about before the main thing that I've worked on. I've done a little bit, actually, before I go into there, on the timeline, in that I've added the founding of Iron Hill. I decided it makes sense that Iron Hill was founded a bit after Telendil runs dry, about 8 years. That way, a bunch of the people from Telendil who are miners could go into here. And then, that's a bit before Sir Lionel, or Lionel, he's not Sir Lionel until... Anyway, it's a bit before he gets born, but the idea here is that, like, hey, there's a bunch of miners, they move out, but other people are like, this is our home, and we've kind of established ourselves here. They don't want to necessarily leave, but it's like Telendil kind of loses a lot of itself here, and within 100 years, it's gone, sort of thing. So there's a little bit of that. In part, I just wanted to explain why Iron Hill has a monument. So I don't know why sometimes it brings up the context menu on left clicks. It's just a weird bug in the thing. In terms of stuff itself, I think I've written a couple more of these. We had forgotten Tomb already in Kandara. Telendil, I added this one. The king of the monsters is always obeyed, but his crown will be taken by the traitorous maid in the land of Kendra where monsters roam, and heroes serve those who fear to leave home. It's always a challenge trying to figure out how to get things to rhyme. But yes, the traitorous maid is referring to the traitorous maiden, who was Sir Lionel's partner who betrayed him. And I was very happy to find that working. And then Sycamore here says, the weak conquer the weak and think themselves strong, but true might will prove them tragically wrong. In the land of Kendra where monsters roam, and heroes serve those who fear to leave home. So this is just referring to the fact that the Kendrans are actually very weak compared to everyone else, but they think they're strong because of the way that they're able to, like, conquer the monsters who are such a threat and that sort of thing. So it's just emphasizing sort of that nature that we will see here. And just in general, I've been trying to figure out what do I do with these and how do they kind of fit together. So there's, like I said, there's a couple more that I've written. I also, Divertier came up with their tag, or their catchphrase, or their course, or whatever you want to call it. In the land of Divertier, where all went fame, but only a few built a lasting name. So that's Divertier's little recurring thing, just kind of like the in the land of Kendra where monsters roam and heroes serve those who fear to leave home bit. But that's enough lore. There are a couple of skills that I've added. I've been trying to work on getting the divine stuff up and running. So I've been working through that a little bit. I got the Holy Axe of Vengeance with Reparation Chop. I'll look at the skills in just a moment. So just a reminder, you get these base versions which have nothing special about them and can be enhanced in the Divine Forge. So then you get Reparation Chop here. Holy Wrath gets double portion. Hellfire thing here. That's not a skill yet. It's a placeholder. But I just had the idea for it earlier, so I wanted to toss it in while I was thinking about it. Cut down for the Holy Scythe of Rebuke. Champion's Flail, I don't have a skill for it yet, and same with Artificer's Club. And I did put together, if I remember correctly, a couple more skills for... So we have Divine Wrath, and Glorious Divine Wrath now has Supernova and Judgment, which I don't think it had previously. most of these still need to have stuff added to them. I added convert to purifier though, so we'll talk about that as well. So let's talk about some of those skills. Like I said, Hellfire is placeholder, but I needed a second tier one. What exactly it'll be yet, I don't know. But what I do know is Reparation Shop right here is just a standard attack. It doesn't do any sort of special damage, but should have TP gain on it though, because it's actually a hit, so it should gain you 10 TP. But it's an HP drain, so it doesn't do any bonus damage, but it drains HP. So that's the difference with that. Double portion is just it hits twice. That's its special property. It's just an attack that hits twice. And then cut down right here. Yeah. Okay. Cut down right here. It doesn't do any bonus damage, but it lowers the highest stat by 1 stage for 10 turns. So that's using a function that's over here in AC modification. Sorry, this is just huge, so it caught my attention very strongly. Let's scroll this sucker down here. Find max stat index. So all this does is it just is that I should have that function name correct over here. Yeah, find max stat index. So all this does is it just iterates across all of your main 6 stats. It's like, hey, is this one bigger than the previous max value we found? Then that's the stat index, and it just keeps going until it goes through all of the stats. Remember, 0 is HP, 1 is MP, so we're starting with strength and going through water, whichever one the last one is. I think it's water. It's basically attack, defense, etc., but they're all rebranded. And yeah, so that just finds the biggest one and lowers that one. So that's just like its special thing. I think I talked about this last time because this was there last time, but this is the code that has it perform the attack. If it's an attack or it's an item and the animation ID is less than 0, which means it uses the weapon, or the item.meta.uses weapon is set, then it does the attack animation. This is less necessary now than it was. I'll explain why in a moment, because I think we're kind of getting to the point. Yeah, so there's that, and then I just need to figure out what the skill is. And I think there might have been yes, there's a couple of other skills in here somewhere. It's starting to fill in, so it's a little bit harder to find stuff. Good old Slorp. That was an ooze skill that debuffs dexterity and such, and it drains 25 MP. That one's been around for a while, though. Let's see where it is. Yeah, Supernova just does a bunch of fire damage. Costs a lot of MP, so you have to have MP boosting items to be able to make use of this. But it does a lot of fire damage to just everything. And then Judgment deals Omni damage to 3 random foes. So that's what that does. Supernova, you'll notice, has an animation called Supernova. I don't remember if I talked about this last time or not. I don't remember the order in which things were made. Let's also talk about Convert. Convert usually also has its own special animation. What this one does is this is a skill that you use on an enemy. It's a little bit slow because I want it to go late. But it adds Fascination, which makes the enemy attack its allies, but also buffs its attack stats. Right? So this buffs it, but also forces it to attack its allies. It buffs strength and dexterity. They may not be its attack stats, but they commonly are. So this will make it deal more damage, but also attack the enemy. So it's an interesting idea for a skill, and I liked it as I was trying to think through stuff, so I added it to that. Rebuke Caster right here is because I did get another set of skills. Yeah, Rebuke Caster is right here. Unleash is, which one was Unleash? Yeah, right here. It's the champion. So this is the spell sword. So like I said, there's a couple of additional skills I've added. So Rebuke Caster is basically a mirror of Rebuke Rebuke Attacker, which is way back up here somewhere. Yeah, Rebuke Attacker. So this one drains the target equal to their MP. There was a bug here where it's based on your MP. It was supposed to be on their MP, so it's now properly on their MP. And then if their MP is 0, so if it's greater than 0, it does 1 times damage. Otherwise, it does double damage. So if it's 0, it does double damage. And yeah, that's that skill. Rebuke Caster is kind of, like I said, it's the mirror of that. You'll notice, however, when I get down here, back to Rebuke Caster, that it is cheaper in TP cost and a little faster. But it drains their MP by their TP, and then does double damage if their MP is 0. So it's kind of a mirror to that. Unleash grants the Windborn Speed and Magi Rage states. So just as a reminder of what those are, Windborn Speed gives you double actions, and Magi Rage is an enchantment that forces you to attack an enemy. You can't use skills, but it increases your damage by your affinities over 3. So it's not quite the average of them. It's a little bit more than that. And so it just does increased damage. So you'll basically be like forced to attack things, but your attacks deal more damage, and you will do 2 actions. So it's the idea here is that you just go into an attack, like a magically in buffed attacking rage sort of thing. It seemed like an interesting idea to me. We'll see how it actually plays. I haven't actually played with it yet. I've just been working on some of these skills and things. But one of the big things that I've been working on, which you may have noticed already on these weapons, where it says Anim Base Strike on here on this Holy Club as an example, is I've been working on a system. So let's back up a little bit. There was a bug that I noticed a while back. I said, does Frost Strike use an electric animation? Do they all use the weapons animation? That might explain it. So basically, this was from a playtest quite a while back, because I haven't done a playtest in a while, because I've been working on lore and other things that don't really add a whole lot of content to playtest per se, but allow me to build content more effectively and more consistently. And you'll notice it says it's fixed now. So this was something that I had noticed of, hey, I used Frost Strike. Why did I get an animation that's all electric-y? And I'm like, that's not proper. I don't know. Yeah, because it just says normal animation, right? And these all just say normal animation. And I didn't want that. I didn't like that effect. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to fix this, though. I don't know how I'm going to fix this problem. Because it's like as I had a Thunder Wand or something and did Frost Strike with it, and it used the Thunder Wand's electrical effect. And I'm like, that's a problem. And then I came upon the idea of, wait, I did this thing where I intercepted the animation pass-through. Actually, this bit right here. I did this, right, to get it so that way they showed the weapon attack. Well, what if I figured out the spot where it applied the effect for the attack hitting and had some sort of thing going on there? So that introduces weapon hits. So weapon hits is a script. You'll see it has 6 categories: base slash, base strike, base pierce, base claw, base gun, and base magic. So here's the help description for it. But you can add this anim base thing to weapons, and you can add them to enemies. So enemies will have this now too. So you may have seen this earlier, but if I was in here earlier, but you can see anim base claw is now on the giant rat as an example. What this does is, well, first of all, it processes the entries in here. And this is just a list. It needs to be as long as the number of types. So that's like 14 long. So again, for reference, if I go into types right here, I have slashing, striking, piercing, fire, water, earth, wind, light, lightning, metal, ice, darkness, life, and omni. These are my types. These are the physical types right here. These are the simple elements. These are the complex elements down here. And then omni is all of the elements together. I've talked about that before, but just as a reminder, like fire plus water equals light, fire plus wind equals lightning, fire plus earth equals metal, water plus wind is ice, water plus earth is darkness, and wind plus earth is life. So they all kind of like combine that way. It's technically it's a combination. 6 choose 2, or 4 choose 2 gets you 6. And if people care about the math for that, you can always just enter like 6 choose 2 into Google, or 4 choose 2, and it'll give you 6. So, boy, I keep getting that backwards because it's the 6 for the big ones. But anyway, this system, it's a combination, not a permutation, for those who are wondering. But this system gave me these types, and I wanted attacks to be able to properly represent those. And I can go into a weapon, and I can be like, hey, just picking something, fiery dragon sword. You should use the /fire animation, which is this guy right here. This is going to be a little loud potentially, but it's that animation, right? It's like, oh, that's a slash with a fire effect on it, as opposed to just a normal slash, right? And it has slightly different sound effects to represent the fire and some additional stuff it does. And you can see right here, there's physical, there's effect, which just has the bit of a glow effect on it. There's fire, there's ice, and there's thunder, which is lightning, right? And it has it for hit, which is basically like blunt. It has it for slashing. It has it for piercing. It has it for claws. So now they obviously chose these elements because of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy, I think of as having your just your regular like physical attack, and then it has ice, fire, and lightning as its major elements, and it's clearly just based off of that. And that seems clear to me how they chose what these elements are going to be. That's all well and good. That's what they chose to do. But I need a lot more, in fact. So if we go into my plugin right here, you can see that there are now lists of animations. And again, 14, right? Because that's how many different types there are. And you can see that there's gun that's added, there's magic that's added, because there's some things that are like, oh, this is a physical attack with a gun. This is a physical attack that's a magical spell. It's attacking with your weapon, except it's a magical spell. A couple examples of those are actually, if I go into my weapons, the wands are type magic. And of course, I don't have any in the game yet, but things like rifles are gun. So I wanted to represent these different types. And so we have like daggers, slashing, flail is strike. Unsurprisingly, claws are claw. Crossbow is pierce. Flintlock is, of course, a gun, so it's gun. Staves are actually strike as well, wherever they are. But then, like, slingshot is strike. Scepter is magic. Magic missile is magic. Tomes are magic. So I had to add a bunch of animations. Some of these are a little janky. I'm still kind of figuring out how this system works. But if we come down here, let's just kind of go through some. So we have Slorp, which I made quite a while ago. I figured out it's pretty easy to make a recolor if I go in here and I just change the color. So Slorp got its own color. Provoke also got its own color. And then this one, I don't know. I was just experimenting with stuff for this one, I think. But then we have like Supernova is just like, oh, it says color swap to be blue. Pretty straightforward to do. Convert is where things start getting a little bit more interesting, and I like started playing around with the animation system a lot more. So it ties this thing together, right? So normally, for reference, that is taking the power down right here, this guy. And right, this plays an animation where it breaks that. Convert is down here, is kind of playing that in a different way, and it's doing a different thing. So then I needed to get life attack. This is for magic. So it's just, if you have magic damage that you do that's life type, it does that. And here's metal. It's not perfect, but it works. And I made one for earth that I should probably go modify, actually. This is one of the things that's really useful. Let's just go with normal blend. So there's different blending styles. Yeah, that works a little bit better. Because, like, okay, so what's the best way? If we go into the edit here, you can see that there's opacity. You can mirror it. You can rotate it. You can scale it. You can. This is just saying which index it is into the list of things on here. It's got a little bit more going on than that. I'm not entirely sure. And then you have its position. Then you have its blend mode. Additive adds the color in, so it'll make things brighter as you go. Multiply multiplies it across, so darker things will get darker. And then screen does a different methodology, and I'm not entirely sure how that one works. But normal is not doing any particular blending with it. So that will make the brown show up a lot better. When it's an additive, it kind of adjusts things. Batch will just change all of the properties of the ones you specify in frames. And then cells are the individual selected things. So like this is cell 1. So once I'd gotten those all inputted, I needed to make more for all of the other types. So like Earth needed a slash animation. This one actually also could stand to have me go through, because I figured things out in parts, right? So if I do that, and now it's a lot more brown, right? And that's why I did that. This one also needs that. So a lot of this is adjusting the up here, the way that it flashes, like what color does it flash to, and what sound effects does it play, has a big impact on stuff. But here you can see, we're starting to get a 2. So what I probably want to do is I probably want to do something like, a lot of the time by default, it's just, yeah. So that looks a lot better, right? Once I shift it over to being normal instead of additive, because additive makes it very, very bright. So, you know, we're kind of fixing things as we go. Yeah, hit Earth is a little bit different. Yeah, because I used a different thing for Earth for spells. And then like Claw Earth probably also needs that adjustment made. Yeah, so let's just do that. Just switch that over to normal. Makes it a little darker. Then I had to do things for water. And you know, some of this is just like recolors of things, different sound effects, give it a different feel. Wind. Right, you get the idea. There's a bunch of these. So a lot of these are just repurposing the ones that already exist, of like lightning and lightning, fire, and ice. A lot of lightning, a lot of fire. This is the other one, the effect one, but with different sound effects going on and a brighter flash for light. Yeah, sometimes the preview can do sound effects a little weirdly. I like the hammer in there. Yeah, some of these work a little bit better than others, and there's been a lot of learning process in it. For these, I made, I just went into the base thing, and I opened the image, and I inverted the colors, and I saved it. These are using multiply as well to actually show up properly. But this is all the fire just turned dark. I use this one other place as well. Yeah, when I get to shoot, I needed to do that. And life is again like fire, but a lot of this is like coloration and sound effects. Sound effects have a huge impact on this, I've noticed. Yeah. So these, I'm just going to go through all of the animations here, but try to talk a little bit. And then, of course, there's the shooting variants that are based off of the hit ones, kind of. I don't know, it's a little tricky to try to get working. Some of these were easier to do than others. But again, trying to get a consistent audio thing going on. And consistent colors as well. So I made a bunch of animations. I signed them into my thing. Here's how the code works. So now that you know what it's doing stuff to. We get all those animations entered into my handy-dandy weapon hit animations object. This is basically just a bunch of arrays. It has an array for the slash style, for the strike style, for the pierce style, for the claw style, the gun style, and the magic style. And then we have the battle log of all things is what makes these animations show. I would not have guessed it, but it's the battle log over here in RPG window. The battle log handles all of the animation stuff for attacks. The other thing is it queues things up, so I had to figure out how to get information across. So right here, you'll see subject.lastUsedElement. The subject is the attack performer. Okay, so we're going to spend some time talking about code here. Couple things. Var like this means it's a local variable to this function. For those who may not know about that, like scope is a big deal. This is global scope. It can be seen anywhere in the program. The $sign has nothing to do with making it global. It's just the fact that it doesn't have var in front. So this is a variable that can be seen at global scope, which means all of the program everywhere can see it. Var means it can only be seen within this particular function. Scope control is an important thing. Hopefully that's enough of an overview for those who aren't familiar with the concept. So anyway, we get the element, we get the animation. There's no animation stored in it right now, so I just set it to null. And the element is set to the last used element. If this variable doesn't exist, this will also just be null. So the first thing I do is check, hey, does the element exist? If the element does not exist, then it just finds the attack animation. That's another function down here we'll talk about in a moment, and assigns the animation to that. If the element does exist and it's less than 0, so if it's 0 or greater, it also just does this, right? Again, we'll look at find attack animation in a moment. If it is less than 0, this means, this is useful if I go over here, skills, no, it's not going to be useful. Just attack will do. That means it's the normal attack element. So this is -1, 0, then 1, 2, 3, etc. So I'm assuming things aren't being set to none for their element. If they are, this might have some problems. But normal attack is -1, so it's going to be less than 0. And so what that means, code-wise, is that it's your attack element. So, for example, if I go over to a weapon, you'll see that the tome sets the attack element to ice. Here's the weird thing about RPG Maker, right, that's really important to be aware of for what's going on here. You can have multiple attack elements. It is not the most recent one that applies. It is the best one that applies. So to understand this, I don't know if it's, yep, it's in this right spot here. Calc element rate. If the element rate, or if the element ID for this skill is less than 0, that means it takes whatever your attack element is. It finds the max rate for your attack elements. It grabs all of your attack elements, and it iterates over them and finds the one that's going to do the most damage. So if you have multiple attack elements, when you attack an enemy, the one that will apply of all of your elements is the one that will hit the hardest. Okay? So this is like one of those like background pieces of functionality that can be easy to overlook. It's totally possible that you only have one, and in fact, it's likely that you only have one attack element. But if you have multiple, just to repeat myself because this was not intuitive to me, it is not timestamped. It does not care about your most recent attack type. It cares about your best attack type. That's the one that will be used. So, like, you could override this stuff to make it like somehow split attack types and the attack elements and stuff if there's multiple and things like that. You could do all sorts of stuff with this if you really wanted to by overriding this function and looking, hey, I've got multiple attack elements. How do they apply? Have other sorts of things to do stuff if you want to do things to it. But the important thing here is, and again, if the element ID is specified by the skill, then it will just use that element, right? But if it's set to be attack elements, then it will look through all of your attack elements for the best one. That's what I'm having to take into account, or choosing to take into account right here. If you are using your attack element, then we will look at animations. Animation will be an array instead of a number. It'll be an array of numbers. And what we'll do is we'll grab all our attack elements, we will iterate through all of the enemies, and for each enemy, we will figure out which of your attack elements is the one that is best, and we will grab the animation for that element. And that's what find attack animation does. It finds the attack animation. It will find the attack animation for that element and assign it to our animation array. So it will custom select the animation based on the best one for that enemy and pick that one because I want it to accurately reflect the type of damage being dealt. Now, there is a possible bug here depending upon how the other thing does. If multiple elements are equally effective, and you have if you have multiple elements that are equally effective against the enemy, I do not know if this will properly align with the one that actually is selected in game. I think it's kind of irrelevant because they're equally effective. But, just that way you're aware of what's going on here. So this, once I've assigned animation, it will either be an array if it's gone through here and there are multiple things and all that sort of stuff, or it will just be a single number. Then we go into show normal animation. We'll talk about that one next. Show normal animation, I had to modify to be able to take this animation ID into account. So right here, if animation ID.length basically determines, is this an array? If it is an array, then we will go in here and we will process it as an array. Otherwise, we'll just do the default functionality for this, which is to iterate with the for each thing over all of the targets and assign the animation ID. Note that this is the animation ID, not the animation. Doing this is just checking to make sure the animation exists and that we're attempting to assign the ID to a valid animation. But if it is an array, then we iterate over the array and we check, does this animation exist? Cool, it does. Start the animation for this specific target. Because remember, there is an ID for each target. So this just functions a bit differently. Hopefully I've explained that well enough. If you have questions about the code, you can leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Or there's also a link to the Discord in the comments below, and you can, or in the description below, excuse me. And you can also just ask on the Discord in the Astral Collision channel. So this is really important right here. How do I want to go about this? Yeah, whatever. We'll do this and we'll talk about the other thing in a moment. So the window battle log performs action. This is where the action is done. Now, the thing that's really important to understand about the code here is the action performance happens, and then that queues up a list of functions to be performed that then does the animation. So there's not a direct through line of did the animation off of the attack. It rather sets up the animation to be done. So it's a little bit wonky and a little bit convoluted, and it does not happen like in order. So I had to make a modification to this to say, okay, if the animation ID is less than 0, which for reference on a skill means that it's set to normal attack, right? So if it's set to normal attack, that's what makes this work. If it's set to normal attack, then it goes into this system. And it says, okay, we make a new variable in subject called last use element and assign it the element ID of this skill, of this item, whatever that may be. Again, that is taken from here, the element here. And there's definitely ways that you can potentially bug this out. Like if you specify its normal attack, but it doesn't have an element, there could be some weird stuff going on. But anyway, so it grabs it from here, and that's how it determines like what the element is to do the attack with. So let's talk about find animation. Actually, let's talk about get hit animation first. All get hit animation does is you tell it which category it is. So slash, strike, pierce, claw, magic, or gun. This is taken from either the enemy's anim base right here, and it's just whatever value you put in here, or it's taken from the weapon if it's an actor. So if it's an actor, it takes it from the weapon. If it's not an actor, then it assumes it's an enemy and it takes it from the thing there. We'll see that when we get to the other thing. But you specify the category and what element it is. And then I decrement the element index because types right here is a 1-based indexing system. 0 is none, and -1 is the one that we classify for. So give me the element. I have to go down 1 because the arrays that I'm storing the animations in are 0-based as opposed to 1-based, so it desynced things. The first time I did it, I had something that's supposed to do an earth attack, perform the wind animation because the array was off. So I just have to decrement element here. The minus is subtract 1 from this. And then the animation ID I just set to default of 0. I just index into the appropriate array based upon what type or what category it is. And then the element tells me which one of those animations to select. And then if there is an animation, so in other words, if this did not return a null, right? This could return null. If it did not return null, then I return the animation ID. Otherwise, I return 0. That's the idea here for this code. Technically, this might also be like if it's 0, then it returns 0, but it doesn't. I don't really care. 0 would be no animation. So let's talk about how we find the animation. I know this has been a little bit hectic in order, but find attack animation is a new function that I made here. It takes the subject and the element that the attack is, so you can see these are being passed in here. Element, of course, is found right here. But it could also be attack elements right here. So this is being, okay, this is the best attack element. This is the element that will pass in. So find attack animation first checks, is this an actor that's performing the action? If it is an actor, then we look at the element. If the element exists, then, so it's not none, then we go grab the weapon. I assume you have a weapon equipped, or I grab your weapon. If there is no weapon there, then we just use the strike animation for that element because unarmed is using the strike animation set. Otherwise, if there's a weapon, we grab the anim base. If anim base does not exist, we use this inbuilt function that grabs the animation as specified by the weapon. So like right here, Tome says animation hit ice. It will just grab this animation. Crossbow would just grab pierce physical rather than using my indexing system to grab the pierce physical animation, for example. Or because, again, this will mean spell swords, like when the skill says, oh, this deals fire damage, then your weapon will use the fire animation even if normal attacks would do the slashing animation. Or things like, to kind of explain the benefit a little bit. When the skill such as Smiting Strike says it's Omni damage, it will perform the Omni animation instead of just whatever the weapon animation is. When a skill like Backstab, it's piercing. So instead of showing the slashing animation, because daggers deal slashing damage and will by default have, I mean, this says pierce physical. So I could actually just take this and set it to normal attack now, and it will do that proper animation. Same thing with Fierce Thrust. Instead of saying pierce physical, and I can just set it to be normal attack, and it will do the piercing one. Now, what's even more exciting is for do these? Oh yeah. Instead of hit effect off of these, if I just set these to normal, they'll use the appropriate. Again, this is the benefit of it, right? Normal attack, like right here, if the scythe deals elemental damage, it will use the proper elemental slice, and all these sorts of things. But these things where it says piercing, it will do the proper piercing animation. This, I could just set here to normal attack, and it will do the fire animation. And more relevantly, this is where it becomes really, really nice. These are assigned to specific weapons, so it matters less. But things right here, like Fire Strike, will use the fire animation as per the weapon. So if the weapon is striking, it will do the striking fire, it'll do the hit fire animation. If it's piercing, it will do the pierce fire animation. If it's magic, it will just do the magical fire animation, even if the base weapon deals water damage, for example. So this allows this to show the proper type of animation for the proper type of damage, and that's the benefit of this system. So anyway, this will grab the animation that's put into the thing by default. If, for example, your weapon does not have an anim base on it, if the element is unknown, it will also do that. So if it's 0, I think it will also go in here, or if it's null, it will just grab the basic animation. There is an animation ID 2 for if you're dual wielding. None of my characters dual wield. And then I use the get hit animation strike for unarmed and this and the element, and that returns it. If it is an enemy, I just set the category to strike by default, and then I look at the enemy to see if they have an anim base. If they do, then I set the category equal to that instead. If the element exists, then I just grab. This should be 1, element 1, not element 0. Finding bugs as we go. But if the element exists as well properly, then we get the hit animation for the category and the element as specified, the enemy and the type that they deal. This is really exciting for enemies. I'll get into the reason why in a moment. And then it gets the hit animation for just whatever the defaults are if element doesn't exist properly and things like that. So this is really exciting to me too, because this means that enemies on their standard attack will actually perform an animation rather than just the default slashing animation that enemies do. So rather than just do the standard, enemies just use animation 1 or whatever. Because by default, what would happen is, and you've all seen this a bajillion times, they will just use this animation, right? Like, all enemies attack, I think, just use this. Now, it will be appropriate to the type of damage they deal, and all that other stuff, like the type of damage they deal, and a style of attack that I've specified them to, and all that sort of stuff. So this, to me, is like super exciting, because it allows me to actually have enemy attacks have a little bit more character, and it allows attacking with weapons to properly reflect damage types and stuff, the way that it should, and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and, who should I continue on? I was using these guys to just kind of test it, but I should be able to do it with any... yeah, you have a mixture of things. So I don't know what they currently have equipped. Adventurer's Air Staff, the Applewood Club, Staff of Healing, and the Adventurer's Scythe. Yeah, okay. This area is maybe a little dangerous, so let's see if I can leave successfully. Okay, I can. Okay. I want to fight some, like, mushroom snakes, ideally. Okay, this will work too. So, like, by default, yeah, this deals earth damage, so I can do stuff with that. I don't know what the best course of action here is. Flame Swath will look pretty similar to what it was. Because it just uses the fire slash animation. But if I had a different type of weapon on, it'd use a different type of animation. So you can see, oh, they're using different animations now. They're using the claw animation because they're clawing, and you can see that has this... What? Which one is that one? Omni? I don't know. I don't remember what her staff was and all that. Hopefully things aren't messed up somewhere. The system is still kind of new and still needs testing. Oh yeah, she's got wind, so that was the wind animation. That's probably fine. I don't know, I'm just going to do normal attacking stuff now. But you get the idea of, like, it does things, and now enemies do special things, and I like I said, I want to find one of them snakes. Okay, I think... Ooh, Reckless Bash. I wonder if I've properly set this one up. Reckless Bash might be... Yeah, I need to look into Reckless Bash. So I don't think it's set to use weapon properly. like I said, this is a new system. I just got it implemented like yesterday, so I'm still working out some of the kinks and in its behavior. Showmanship seemed pretty good. Yes, I'm going to use encouragement because it'll help him a lot. Her splash of healing is terrible. I want this force spider to go down. We'll just do a little bit of combat here and go after a couple of different enemies. I might see if I can change Callista's weapon to a different type entirely. Let's just heal Bunpoing. Just everybody attack this thing. And it's slashing. Yeah, you can see. Uses the claw animation. Do I have... Nope, I don't have a different... Okay, let's go ahead and drop a save. Let's see if I can... I don't remember. Actually, this is where I can use... Can equip. So she can equip a flail or club. Okay, a club will work. Let's go get her a club. Should be able to theoretically craft one. Oh yeah, Mystical Journal now works again properly, as you can see. I have the thing about what are divine monuments. This file doesn't necessarily have all of the flags and everything set up properly, but some of them are starting to show up in there. Can I make... These are all equally fine for her. Let's get her the orange one. Yeah, because this will boost her fire by a little bit. And clubs use a different animation. So if I go fight things again over here, like some mushroom snakes, for example. I'm going to just drop an absorption on her. I don't know, just attack these guys, I guess. And Flame Swath will now use a different animation. You can see it's the hit animation now instead of the slashing animation because the weapon is a hitting weapon. But its normal attack does not use that animation, right? It just uses the same sort of normal physical hit because it's normally a physical attack. I'm going to demonstrate that here. Just have everyone else guard. See? So that the system transitions stuff like that, which I'm just super excited by. And you can see that these guys are using, I think they're using the piercing one. Because they deal piercing damage. So that's how the system works. That's kind of like what it does. And again, like I'm super excited about it. There are certain points of commonality. So if we look in the weapon hits, you'll notice that all of these guys here start off the same way, 6, 1, 11. That's just the standards like slash, hit, and pierce animations. And then Claw uses a different animation for slash, but the same for hit and pierce. And then Gun uses the same shoot animation for the 3 physical types. And then Magic uses the same base ones for the physical types as well, but very different ones for the others. So for some reason you're not dealing magical damage with magic attack, it will just use the same physical one. But it's like something that you're free to customize and stuff. If people are interested in this script, by the way, let me know, and I can try to remember to put it on like a GitHub or something first or whatever. I eventually want to put my plugins up on my GitHub, but that's an eventually thing when stuff is like more finished at large. But anyway, I'm really excited about this. Really happy about this. It solves a problem that I had that I wasn't sure how I was going to solve, and then this idea like came along and like allowed me to figure out, oh, that's how I solve it. That's straightforward enough. I mean, it's not. There's a bunch of stuff I had to do, but that means this is now done. This is fixed, and I'm excited about it. Yeah, so I think that kind of sums up stuff for today. Like I said, most of it was conceiving of and implementing that system, and I'm really excited about it. So until next time, everyone, thank you all very much for watching. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.